Thank you guys for being on here for another episode of the True Sweet High podcast. It's Annette, your host, and today I have a special guest that I had to just get on here right away because you guys, she's doing some amazing things. But her name is Gwyn Mais. She is a military spouse, Air Force reservist, and a mother of 2 girls. But she also does Christian life coaching, and she's a radio personality. Her story really hit home with me because she has either had friends or family that was struggling with suicide or have actually taken their life. And what she has done with that is gone to help other people and be there for them and had that passion for helping others who have struggled with that. But I think one of the greatest things right now that I had to get out to all of you is the fact that she is running 100 miles to support the cause, and she's raising funds for awareness through Stop Soldier Suicide. And so I was like, oh my gosh, we have to get her on. So thank you, Gwyn, for being on here. I can't wait for you to share your story, and you guys need to go and support her because 100 miles, oh my gosh. So thank you so much for being here. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and everything else.
So thank you for having me. I'm very excited to share my story. I like to share that wherever I can to hopefully help others. But I am in the military. I'm in the Air Reserves. I have been in the military for almost 4 years now, not quite 4. I have been a military spouse, though, for going on 13 in January. Or 14, I'm sorry. It's 13 this year, 14 in January. So I am very seasoned in that way with the military. I know my way around things there. But I have, known over the years that there's a gap there in the military with suicide, and I've seen it many times over. And so as I'm seeing this and seeing all these people struggle, I just wanted to give back in some way. And so I'm really excited to be getting into the 100 miles this coming month in September. And so I'll be doing that. I'm very excited about that. But I have 2 girls, and I love them dearly. I have a soon-to-be 13-year-old this week, actually. And I also have a 9-year-old, and they are doing virtual learning as we speak. So we're working through all of this new schedule and everything with COVID. But yeah, I love my family, and I am super passionate, like I've said, about suicide awareness. I actually, when I was just barely an adult, I just turned 18, moved out of the house, and a very close member of my inner circle attempted to take their life. They took 71 Tylenol, and they didn't tell anybody for 3 days, and everyone thought they were just sick with the flu and that they would get better. And then finally, they were like, you may need to go to the hospital, because they really didn't want to go. They were trying to get them to go for days. They didn't want to go. And then finally they were just like, I know why I'm sick. And immediately they took them, rushed them to the hospital. And it was just such a crazy time in my life, because at that point I was just barely an adult. I'm like, I didn't expect to have anything like that happen in my life. And it was just kind of one of those moments that kind of rocked my world. And that's kind of started it for me with suicide awareness and kind of getting into that world of things and helping out in that way. I just couldn't ever imagine someone being so alone and so in pain that was their only option. I just felt for them. I was just like, oh, if that's where you're at, like, I want to help out whatever I can to help you get where you feel better and you don't feel alone. And so this person actually survived, thank God. And the doctors had told us overnight they had a 50% chance of living. And so we were just kind of sitting by the phone, like waiting to see. And they said if they do survive, they're going to need a liver transplant. They didn't need one, praise God. So I was overjoyed at that, but it just kind of propelled me into that field of giving back. And so I ended up searching over the years for a way to do that. And I started volunteering with a suicide hotline and did that for 2 years. And then after that, I wanted to move into the military. And so that's when I kind of took a back seat to that and jumped into the military. That was kind of a goal of mine for my whole life. So I was very excited to get to do that and serve alongside my husband. And so then after I went into the military, I met a really good friend of mine, and we met through a program that helped us transition into the reserves before you go to basic training. And so we kind of trained together, worked out together, and just helped each other where we could to get motivated to go to basic training and do all of that. And I was quite a bit older than her, so I kind of took her under my wing, kind of showed her the ropes and helped her out. And I love the relationship and she needed somebody to kind of mentor her. So I loved that dynamic. I loved giving back in that way. And so then we ended up at the same tech school, which is where you go and train for your job. And so we ended up there at the same time. I was so excited to see her again, and we got to really connect there for a while we were training. And then she came back to the same unit where I was. So we kind of met up again after we got back from tech school and kind of continued our friendship from there. And finally found out just recently that she took her life. And again, that was another moment for me that was just like, whoa, like this is so real. Like people are really struggling. And I had no idea. Like I had the background with the suicide hotline. I knew all the signs to look for. I knew, everything that I could know to help her in whatever way that I could. And she knew that I had that background. I'm always very open with that. And so it just really, again, it was just kind of one of those things that rocked my world again. I was like, wow, like I didn't know what to do with what had happened because I had done everything on my side of things to reach out to people to open up. And so that was just kind of a really big struggle for me when that happened as to how to process that because I had in my head, I was like, I could help. And so, yeah, this is kind of a gist of my story. I did have another friend that along the way took their life as well. And so just kind of been this all the way through my life. It seems like I've been kind of touched by these things along the way quite a bit.
That's a lot. Like, especially at the age of 18, for me, that's the first time I took pills. I was 16 actually, but we just didn't talk about that stuff. So it was like, what do you do? And why did this happen? And all these emotions and these thoughts. And it's just like, hush, hush. It's so overwhelming being a kid at that age, and so I can't even imagine. And then, like you said, you went through life, you took those classes, you worked for the suicide prevention hotline. So you thought you knew the signs, and then something like that happens and you're like, I didn't even see it. And it just, I don't know. I mean, did you feel guilt? How do you cope through something like that?
Yeah, so I found myself I was working through that for quite a while, um, and a lot of people were asking, they're like, "Well, I just want to ask to be sure, do you feel like this is your fault?" And I knew the right answer was like, no, it's not my fault. And so I was like, no, I don't really feel like it's my fault. But as I worked through that more, I realized I did feel this guilt of, could I have done something more? Because I was the professional that knew what to do. So there was a day that I always went back to where she had come to me, and it may not have been a big deal. It may not have, but in my head, I just kept going back to that day of she came to me and asked me for a ride because we were at drill working together, and she needed a ride across base. And that particular day, I had several tests that I had to do and some other things that had deadlines on them. So I didn't have a ton of time to jump in my car and take her across base and then come back. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to try to get this done really quick, and then I'll take you if I can. And so she was like, okay. And then I think she ended up getting a ride from someone else, but she kind of waited around for a while. Like she wanted to take a ride with me. And I felt really bad that like I couldn't give her that. And it was shortly before she had taken her life, looked like a couple months before. And so I always wondered in the back of my head, like, was she asking me specifically to have that conversation? And so that's kind of what I went back to. And I just realized, like, through working through the feelings and everything, and even the training that I got with the hotline, is like, you can't make people stay here in this world. Like, they have to make the decision on their own. And we can help as much as we can. We can be as open as we can. We can support them as much as we can. But then it's ultimately like their decision if they decide to stay here or not. And I had to just keep going back to that and understand and give myself enough grace to say, like, I did everything that I knew what to do. I did everything in my power. If I had known there was anything going on, I would have done more. I would have, but I didn't. And so I did everything, given the situation, that I could have done. And so I just had to kind of work through that and understand that and give myself grace in that time. And God ultimately healed me of all of that pain. And so.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. But I mean, you did bring up good points. It's true. People are gonna have to want to be here, and we can't save everybody. And it's heartbreaking because I felt like that too. Like, I want to help everybody. I want to save everybody. I want to do everything, but I can't. And it's so hard to keep telling yourself that, especially when you have a servant heart and you just want to help people. So I can't imagine. So I do have a question, because I have 2 kids and I've had to talk to them about this stuff, even though it's so hard. And they don't, I mean, my son's 17, my daughter's 20, but sometimes they're like, I know, Mom, I know. So how do you discuss things like this with your own children? Because I know around here, we actually had a 16-year-old take her life last year in my son's grade. And it was like, oh my God, it just, yeah. And I tried to talk to him about it. And he heard me, but I don't think he heard me. It's just like one through one ear, not the other. So how do you have those conversations with your children, even though, I mean, they're still young?
Well, so the heartbreaking part of being on the suicide hotline was that I saw firsthand a majority of the cases that I saw that came through were 9 to 11-year-olds. That was the category. And in my head, I was like, I couldn't fathom